Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to briefly be going over a pretty big new feature that was added in version 3.2 that a lot of people may not be aware about because it just starts basically tomorrow or today during the new Guild Wars week. It was something I suggested a while back and the devs did actually end up implementing it, which was pretty cool. So really important to do this as it does make up a small portion of your points that you end up retaining. But in Guild Wars, if we go over to Guild Wars and we go over to our defense, there is now a new system that is in place for defense. Of course, you can see what all your teams are, and it's a lot easier to actually set them and everything like that, but there's also a new point incentive to them. So essentially, you need to set 4 different troops to every single team that you use for your defense, and that'll end up giving you 2,000 per team. And if you use 24 different troops across all 6 teams, which means literally every troop that you set for your Guild War defense are a unique troop, this will yield you the most amount of additional points. As you can see at the bottom, it will say 12,000 points. Not quite sure exactly how many of those you can actually obtain. These are just potential points. These aren't necessarily points that you're automatically getting, but we'll see after a week or two exactly how these scale out. But essentially, to be able to get the maximum amount of points from Guild Wars, you will have to use 24 different troops among all of your defense teams. So it is definitely a really good idea to switch them to actual unique teams. This will help a lot so that we don't have to see Guild War battles where we basically face the same 1, 2, or 3 teams, or simply just one team with a bunch of different variants. Now we'll see completely different one because, for example, if we use, let's say, a Guard's Avatar on this team, that means we can't use a Guard's Avatar on any other team. And similar to this, we can't, if we use a Kraken here, we can't use a Kraken on any other team. This also means we can't go double Kraken, or else we will get penalized for using double of 2 Kraken. So it makes for some pretty creative team building that you will be able to do. To switch your team, you simply just click on this and then switch over to any team, or you can instead go over to the edit team and then switch your team that way into whatever you want. Do keep in mind this doesn't actually save it, and you'll still have to go into this top tab and then click over to whatever team you want. So let's just briefly go over basically what each of the days are, what you can kind of build. I'm not going to be going over too much on specific teams right now. We'll save that for a different video. I just want to go over some basic strategies, so regardless of what you really have to work with, you'll know kind of what to do. So first things first, let's start all the way over with Red Day. Red Day, you generally want to be using a freeze troop. This is mainly because a lot of red teams do like to go for the loop. Red Day tends to be a lot of people's worst day, so doing a team that can easily basically destroy people would be pretty good for points on that day. So we're just basically using a Justice team that happens to be using a Kraken. There are some better uses of Kraken, but given that we can only use one Kraken, I figured might as well use it for a Justice team. But yeah, freezes definitely really high. Immunity to burn, if you want, are also pretty good because a lot of reds do have the capability to burn. But yeah, basically just ensure you have the freeze, maybe some immune to burn, and just really high damage output, and you'll be good to go. So Blue Day. Blue Day tends to have a lot of drain. Some pretty common picks that people like to go are like Scion and Corvash and things like that. Christine X is also pretty common, so submerged troops also wouldn't be too bad of a choice. Personally, I'm just going with the standard drain spam team because generally most blue teams are built into drain. So simply putting a Scion to counter their Scion will help a little bit, and we might be able to rush them up before they end up getting their drain. So that is the whole hope and plan for that particular team. For a Brown Day, one strategy that you can sometimes do if you want to risk it, it's high risk, high reward for the Defend Day. But one thing that you can do is basically build a team that builds into that color. So as you can see, we're basically using a brown oriented team on a brown day. So hopefully if we get, or our AI ends up getting the advantage, we would then have the upper hand and be able to snowball with all of the browns. It's basically just built around one very, very, very large Guard's Avatar cast, and hoping that we can work with that. One other thing to note, which is somewhat apparent by looking at these, so I should probably reiterate it because I didn't really mention it earlier, you do not have to use the pure color of whatever the team is, whatever the day is. They only have to be unique. They do not have to be the actual Guild War Day's color. So as you can see here is a Red Day. We do not have to use 4 reds. You can use whatever you want as long as they are unique. So do keep that in mind. So Green Day. Green Day, you are generally going to be up against a lot of Kraken. Impervious Last Thought or Anti-Devour Last Thought is basically required on every Green Day you ever do. Do keep in mind, there are plenty of budget builds that you can do out there. For example, here is a Savage Hunter. He deals triple damage to anything that uses green mana. Anything similar to this guy is really, really good to use. He's also only a rare, so most people probably have this guy. You might not have him leveled or anything, but he is definitely a really, really solid Green Day defend. Too bad we can't use multiple of them, but similarly, Green Day is also a really good day to have freeze. Of course, if you end up using Queen Mab already, can't use her again. So substitute, I just did an Ice Golem that not only has freeze on his skull, but also can multi-freeze off of his ability itself, as there are mainly for mana generation, as I mentioned, basically always impervious or anti-devour for your last slot on Green Day, just to make sure you can protect yourself against Krakens. Sometimes you also have to deal with Christine X's, though more often than not, I'm pretty sure Giant Spider Kraken is the core mechanic that generally gets used for that day. So better to play it safe that way than try going with a Submerge. On a Purple Day can vary quite a bit. There isn't any one specific thing I would really say that gets heavily used on a Purple Day, so you can basically just set whatever strong team you really wanted to go with. For this, I end up just going with the kind of anti-spam thing that we ended up doing for the Brown Day that I showed. This is basically the same thing, just simply using an endless loop that will hopefully be able to go and tear them down quick enough, and also hopefully not miss and give them a bunch of purple, because that can happen. You basically have two routes that you can generally go whenever you build a team like this. You can either go the rush whatever color of that day is and hope that you outdo them with your AI thingy, or you can go and counter it, use things that completely deny out those colors and make sure the enemy absolutely doesn't have any of it. If you do go the deny route, one thing to really make sure to watch out for is not to put too much denial on your team. If you go with a bunch of things, like 3 things that can remove the enemy's color and then not really have anything else on the team, you're basically going to make your team almost always lose, mainly because there's no kill card on the team. Always make sure every single team that you build ends up having some way to end up killing out the enemy. So for example, if we go through every single one of these teams as far as like what's actually going to kill it, in this team it's either going to be our excessively high attack or the Queen Mab. In this team it's most likely Famine or the Death. In this team it's Guard's Avatar. In this team it's Savage Hunter. In this team it's Elima Grim or possibly Infernus. And in this team it could be literally everything, because they all hit all enemies other than the Shadow Dragon. And on the Yellow Day tends to be really heavy on Daemons. Also can be pretty heavy on Holy Troops. Unfortunately, there is not a troop that both counters the Divine plus Daemon. Generally, they only deny one way or the other, so I figured the best way is just to go with a little bit of full AoE. There is quite a bit of barrier that gets used. Kraken would actually be a pretty good day for a Yellow Day as well if you wanted to go down that route. But yeah, I would say a mana counter is also a pretty good counter on a Yellow Day, which is also why I ended up going with the Shadow Dragon, which of course converts all yellow to purple as a possible additional option to counter them out. But anyways, yes, there are those new defends. Definitely make sure to set them. They will count for a portion of your points, as you've seen this entire time. I will be doing some videos in the future going more specifically into teams, but this will make for a pretty good video that if you have any questions, just leave them in the comment section below and I can help advise you if you want to like say what your team is for one of the days, or if you need help building anything or anything like that. I will try to assist you the best I can. But anyways, just another reminder, do make sure to do this. This starts going into effect as soon as the Guild War Day starts today, and this is the first time it's ever been in effect, so I figured I'd do a video directly addressing it for any of you that who may not have been aware of this mechanic. Anyways guys, thank you all so much for watching. Leave your questions below, and I will see you all later. Goodbye!